Nigerian Islamic police ban mannequin heads citing Sharia law. So before I read
Wow.
this story, I want people to guess in the live chat. If you already know, or don't look at what's on the screen, I want you to guess what it is about mannequin heads that you think violates Sharia law. I think I
I
already
don't
told
even know
Armin what
this.
the answer is. Do you remember?
No, no. Let me think. Oh wait, you did tell me that. It's not what you think, actually.
It's not what I
It's
expected.
it's not, because I was thinking just the head. Why that? Okay, let me see what if people anybody. No,
People
five
are
all
saying
over the same.
exposing the hair because they weren't
No
covered, makeup,
makeup, hair. No,
hair, uncovered
no
faces,
hijab. No, you're
uh,
right. Wrong.
drawn on eyes.
No.
And then Fabi say, don't tell me it's because you can cut a hole in it.
Come on, guys. You should be able to tell us. No, you're all wrong.
The ex-Muslims in the chat are gonna lose their mind when I say the answer, okay?
Depictions of Muhammad in what? Chinos? What does that
That's
mean?
a
I don't
type of
know.
shorts.
No, guys, the head is being banned, not the rest of
Or
it. Like, okay, hold on. I think it goes.
it goes against the rules of replicating the human form. That's closer.
No, AJ, but because why is the rest of the body then not banned? Like, look,
Well,
Mortal Skeptic is saying curves. Well, the rest of the body is not banned. I mean, if
well,
it's
there's some
curves,
stipulations, but okay. So we
yeah.
have some
No,
guesses.
but I know, but the main thing is the head, right?
Yes, the main thing is that.
Yeah.
So the state of Kano in northern Nigeria has implemented a ban on mannequin heads. The new ban was announced by the Kano State Hisbah Corps, an Islamic police force funded by the government. At the start
Wait,
of
wait, wait,
July,
wait. Read this. Don't read this one. Just like notice what D is saying.
I can't.
All right, continue.
At the start of July, the Hisbah Corps announced that mannequins with female heads are prohibited in, quote, shops, commercials, and private residences and other public places. The initial announcement used Islamic teachings that prohibit.
Someone got it.
Okay. The announcement used Islamic teachings that prohibit idolatry as the
Yes.
basis for the banning of mannequins with heads. The head of the
Yes.
Hisbah Corps, Harun Sani, who goes by Ibn-Sina, explained aside from being headless, mannequins should always be covered. He explained that the, quote, shape of the breast, the shape of the bottom is contrary to the teachings of Sharia. The appointment of Ibn-Sina has seen drastic increase in harsh and unreasonable implementation of Islamic laws. Ibn-Sina's Hisbah Corps has committed unauthorized arrests on individuals suspected of same-sex intercourse, as well as individuals suspected of engaging in premarital sex.
Okay, so
Sakuro is saying, idolatry? Who's worshiping mannequins in Nigeria?
but also yes, Michelle won because you're the only one who guessed that. But yeah, this is shirk basically, right? It's
Yes.
the greatest sin in Islam, because yes, like the body curve and everything might be like a lot of people when they think about Islam and haram and things that are not allowed, the main thing that people go to is like sexual stuff that should be like not allowed, right? But most people don't understand that shirk or idolatry or coming up with partners for God in worship, like that is beyond sin. That is like some people don't even call it sin because it's its own category. Like you have sins, which is bad things to do, and then you have shirk, and shirk is just completely the foundation of Islam will like be rotted. Like if you, for example, any sin that you commit, you could just basically do tawbah and become forgiven and all. But if you do shirk, then there's no like you're not even a Muslim anymore, right? So this is such a more important than all being sexually aroused by I don't know, a mannequin or whatever. I don't know who does, but whatever. That's all okay, right? So, for example, we were reviewing a video before by some of the Salafi Muslims who understood like that how important the oneness of God or Tawheed is within Islam. They're like Nike um, is had an LGBT ad with a Muslim in the same ad where with a Muslim hijabi, and a lot of
And
Muslims were
niqabi.
offended in the hobby. A lot of Muslims were offended how you have a Muslim hijabi. I mean, hijab covers all of them. A hijabi woman in a ad with an LGBT also person, and they were like, "Oh my God, we're gonna have to boycott Nike because of this ad and all." But these Salafis, like, guys, Nike has the reason why you should be boycotting Nike is way beyond this LGBT stuff, because the Salafi guys like LGBT stuff. Those are just sins, and sins are like you could figure out how to get forgiveness for sins. Like sins are just things that maybe knocks you off a few points, and you could still end up in heaven even if you're sinful, even if you're a sinful Muslim. The problem with Nike is that Nike is named after a god. Okay, like Nike is named after a god. That's the main issue with Nike, because it has partners with God. Like it's shirk. It's the biggest sin in Islam, is attributing worthiness of worship to anything other than Allah, right? So that is the main thing Islam has a problem with. And I guess these people, like a lot of people think like depicting faces in Islam, why is that such an offensive thing? Why is that against Islam, right? And a lot of people, in at least in some Islamic schools of thought, is because the potential of idolatry, right? Depicting any human being. And I know a lot of Muslims do that, and there's some Islamic schools of thought that don't have an issue with that. But the ones that do, the reason is any potential of any figure becoming a subject of worship. It's such an important thing that's why it's illegal. Wait, by the way, did this actually become law?
So this apparently this head of the Hisbah Corps, Ibn-Sina, is just like very extreme. There were analysts who say that he does a lot of this stuff basically for like his own ego, like attention, and kind of to flex his power. Like he's known for having forcibly shaved like the mohawk off of a guy's head. He said that posting this photo of like the fiance of the president's son, where she is in her bridal outfit, but you can see her shoulders. Like he said that anyone who says who shares that commits a sin. Like he's known for having these very audacious, like ridiculous bans, and oftentimes they're not even like really enforced, it seems. Especially considering that Kano is a state in Nigeria that does enforce Sharia, but in theory, it's supposed to only apply to Muslims, and there is, a sizable Christian population in certain cities in that state, and so, there's lots of contention between how would you actually enforce this when you are undertaking part of this law to essentially, I think our writer who wrote the story for our site made a very good point. It's essentially thought policing as well, because it's like removing things from your environment so that you're not even allowed to think certain things, specifically like Muslims, or even Muslim men more specifically, are being thought policed and like prevented from having any potential, temptations even within their environment. But if you're a Christian in the area, these aren't supposed to apply to you, but you would still be exposing the Muslim population to these things potentially. So it's just overall a complete mess. It was interesting. There was a Muslim cleric in the region who was quoted by BBC, and he said, quote, "Islam forbids idolatry, but the hadith, the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad, is clear on Allah judging your intentions. Unless you are bowing down to a mannequin, it can't be seen as sin," said a Muslim cleric who did not want to be named. And then, but many senior Muslim clerics, such as Haliru Mariah of the Islamic Council of Nigeria, say the position of the Hisbah on the mannequins is correct, as, quote, Islam is against carving human statues, whatever name you want to call it.
Right. This idea of what is exactly shirk has become such a major point of contention in Islam for the past 1200 years. So, and it could get, so people are like, yes, shirk is the worst thing in Islam. Are like, what is shirk? Are like, okay, coming up with partners in worship for Allah. Okay. How do you come up with partners for worship in Allah? The answer to that varies so greatly. Right? So you could go as loose, as strict as nothing but actual worship, bowing down and praying to a statue, or like Jesus, or like considering something a god. That's the only time that this, like, so you could have it as narrow as that. Like, oh, this is shirk because you're worshiping this. You're saying this is my god. You're calling it a god. You're worshiping it. So that's shirk. So, for example, a clear example of shirk is worshiping Jesus. Or a clear example of shirk will be, like, for example, Hindus praying to Ganesh or something like that. Okay, that is clear shirk in Islam. Okay, and everybody, I mean, almost everybody agreed that that's shirk. Okay, but then people are like, that is the most obvious kind of shirk. But there are other shirks as well. That's just the most obvious one, and that's you don't need. You could become more loose and say, like, even if you have an idol or a saint and you're praying to it and you're saying, I don't think this is God, I just think this is the intermediary between me and God. A lot of Muslims saying that's also shirk. Even if you think like even if you're saying there's a one true God and this is just an intermediary, you're still worshiping it. This still looks like worship to me. It smells like worship, sounds like worship. It is worship. Okay. So there's, for example, by that argument, a lot of Sunnis will say Shias are mushrik. Shias are committing shirk because they pray to Hussein or they pray to Ali. So that is shirk, right? Or if they say, look, this person, like these Hindus, like, no, we believe in oneness of God. We're just using these idols as a way to communicate with that. This is not the one God. There's another one God. Some Muslims will say, well, okay, that's not shirk. Some Muslims are saying, no, that is also shirk. Because if you actually look at Muhammad's story, the Qurayshi people who were idol worshippers, they were saying the same thing. They were saying, like, oh yeah, we are worshiping Allah. These idols are just intermediary between us and Allah. And Muhammad called that shirk. So if Muhammad called that shirk, based on that argument, the Shias are doing shirk as well, or all these other people who are making that argument. Like, they're saying, like, even if you don't call it worship, if it's worship, you just don't call it worship, it's still worship. Okay. But then the circle gets larger and larger and larger, to the point that some Muslims saying, like, if you like anything other than Allah, you're doing shirk. Like, if you could be worshiping money, you could like be living for money or for fame, and technically you're worshiping money in that situation, and that's shirk.
Or the material world, this life.
Or the material. Like, okay, like now everything is shirk. Like, where are you getting with this? Like, I would like, I like chocolate. Do you like chocolate more than Allah? Then that's shirk. Like, oh no! Like, you can like, oh, I love my mom so much. Do you love your mom more than Allah? Like, that's like, I don't know. Like, at some point, this whole definition of shirk can get so loose. Again, there's disagreements on how loose the definition of shirk is, but that has been a subject of debate for 1,200 years. In fact, let me tell you something. One last thing. Some people will say Islam is shirk because the concept of Tawheed, which is the oneness of God, is being challenged according to Mu'tazilites within at the very beginning of Islam. They're like, hey, you see this Quran? Right? Mu'tazilites were saying that if you guys saying the Quran is the uncreated word of Allah, okay, which is accepted in Islam, right? This is one of the core principles of Islam. This used to be a subject of debate, but now it's not anymore. Like, if this is the uncreated word of Allah, then that means it's divine. That means the Quran existed independently from creation, independent from time and space with Allah. Okay, that means the Quran is divine. Well, if the Quran is divine, now we have two divine entities. One is Allah, and the other is the word of Allah, and that's challenging to the oneness of divinity, and that would be shirk. And that's what the Mu'tazilites used to argue, which used to become very popular at some point. And through the first Inquisition of Islam, they were eliminated, and that their views were completely wiped off. I mean, until recently, it's coming back a bit. But you could argue that because the Mu'tazilites lost, shirk, Islam is shirk. Islam believes in, anyways, I'm getting too much theological with you guys.
Islamic nerd moment.
Islamic nerding out on Islam, yeah.
Nerd alert.
Okay.
I thought you were going to start talking about the Hanbalis, and then we were going to be really gone.
Oh, don't forget the worship of Muhammad. Actually, Muslims are very sensitive about this topic. They want to make sure that you don't, that they clarify that they're not worshiping Muhammad. That would be a major accusation, right? Anyway, worship sleep. Yeah, well. Yeah. By the way, right now is the month of Muharram in Islamic calendar. So the shirk of Shias is rising everywhere. So, by the way, that's a major accusation by of Sunnis against Shias. Anyways, let's. Oh, so
is it wrong though? No.
Hey, aren't you supposed to be defending the Shias? What happened?
Shh. I'm shifty. You don't know what you don't know what sect I am anymore. Hey guys, if you're a fan of blasphemy and sexy Callie, you know, like me, then you need to be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Link in the description below. Because if you subscribe, we will send you a free copy of our blasphemous art ebook. And let me tell you, it is the tastiest blasphemy that you can find anywhere available today. And we are so generous with our blasphemy that we continue to send you more blasphemy every week. So make sure to subscribe. Link in the description below.